Okay. Hello and welcome back to the Exist Better YouTube channel. We are going to talk about debate today. And I apologize in advance because the light keeps coming and going from the sun. So it's going to be a little like dark light probably throughout this video, but try to keep my light on. Yes. So I want to talk about debate. I want to tell you about my own personal rules for myself that I've been following or trying to follow for many years now around the topic of debate to keep myself sane. And I want to talk about how minds actually change, what it actually is when you're trying to change someone's mind. As usual, this is gonna fly in the face of kind of what we hear in mainstream thought about debate. We kind of worship it in a way, very much in theory, though. We're not really all that objective in our debates, as you've seen. Maybe you are watching this video, but you've probably seen a lot on the internet, in comment sections, in podcasts, obviously in the political sphere, in the media. Not a lot of objectivity going around. Lots of emotional reactivity. People claiming that they're arguing logically, but they're obviously emotionally upset and angry. So this notion of debate in our culture, I think it's something that we glorify. The fact that we debate each other and we get to the facts and we figure out what's true through the scientific method, the process of elimination, whatever. And I believe, based on my own research, my own understanding of the human brain, that I believe it's not quite what we think it is. Debate is not what we think it is. Or maybe it is what we think it is, but we're having trouble actually even engaging with it at all. I personally have yet to see, feel free to, give me an example of this being wrong, but I have yet to see an instance where someone's mind was changed on the internet, in an argument, in a supposed debate, in a comment section, in a Reddit post, in a YouTube video, in a podcast. I've never seen someone's mind be changed ever, ever. And I've seen a lot. I've seen a lot of videos. I've seen a lot of discussions. I've seen all kinds of shit. Never seen someone's mind be changed once. And there's an explanation for that. It's a very common fact that we hear about all the time in science that the subconscious runs 95% of our brain, of our decision making, of our understanding of things. The subconscious processes drastically more information than the conscious mind does. And it jumps, like, because there's only so much you can get done in a day. So the subconscious it's got to keep you alive. It's got to sort through tons and tons of information every day, physical, emotional, mental decisions, all kinds, especially nowadays. And so, in light of that, the subconscious oversimplifies things to just make life livable, to make it easy enough to make decisions and get through the day. So what does that mean? I believe what it means, and I believe this is demonstrated all the time if you look in our culture, that uh, people do not change their minds when presented with facts and logic. They do not. I've tried it. I've done it in my personal life. Nobody ever cares about any of the facts that I have or any of the data that I'm carrying. And, I kind of have a lot of it, to be honest. I have a lot of data. I've got a lot of facts that I could spew at someone at any given time. Um, and I can defend all kinds of concepts, ideas, positions, But I've noticed how incredibly fruitless it is. Not only is it fruitless, but it makes me feel powerless anytime I'm doing that. So while debate can be fun and constructive and it can change people's minds, but here's the thing. It almost never happens because people are 95% driven by these deeper emotionally driven, survival driven assumptions. So if you happen to be hanging out with your friend and your friend's very open minded and you are very open minded and you tend to agree on a lot of things, yes, that's the perfect climate where a debate can be really a lot of fun. And what happens in a good debate, I believe, is that you've got one person on this side, person on this side. They each have an idea that seems to conflict. And what will happen in a really good debate, this is just my understanding, my belief around this, is that there's a third way that sort of combines or blends both the first two into something even bigger and better that brings even greater awareness. So it's not, so nobody ends up winning necessarily. Well, sometimes someone could win. If someone is just wrong and they made an assumption and then they realize, but again, like I said, how often does that happen? I've never seen it happen. So a good debate will have two people coming from very different poles a lot of the time. And if they're truly open minded, they can actually create a third way that is better and encompasses more information than those first two ways. So they no longer need to cling to the first two ways. They create something better and they discover something new together. That is my definition of a really good debate. Now, I want you to compare this to, what you see. Think of like the last presidential debates. I don't recommend you watch those. It's a waste of your time, but any debate you've seen recently on a talk show or anywhere, it doesn't tend to go that way. Everyone just stays in their little corner and digs themselves deeper. They double down on what they already thought, and they become even more polarized and opposed. That, I believe, is not the point of what debate, the actual value of debate. And because we see so little of that true blending of minds and logic and objectivity, that is the reason that, because that is so seemingly scarce and very few people can do that. I don't even consider myself necessarily someone who could do that well. So, for my own reasons, also, not just other people's behavior, but for how I know myself that I can get, I do tend to try to avoid debate. So when I started this channel, I knew I didn't want to ever debate anyone logically, convince anyone of anything. In fact, it flew completely in the face of what I wanted to create here, which is me sharing my opinions, my feelings about things, my way of understanding things. If you don't like it, if it's offensive, this is obviously not the place for you. And that in itself, I feel like, is offensive to people. And just a note here on cancel culture. This is not intellectualism. The sign of a true intellectual is someone who can A, change their minds, and B, they've already done their due diligence. They've already done their research. They've already had their life experience. So they come into things with all that already intact. And if you're getting surrounded by the angry mob with pitchforks that I often talk about on this channel, you are not under any obligation to prove or defend anything. That is how debate works. But if you're not in a debate and you don't even know who these people are, you are under no obligation. You do not have to feel shame. You do not have to feel afraid. You just have your own opinions. And of course, true sign of an intellectual is someone who can change their mind when presented with enough new evidence. But that does not happen through fear, pressure, and shame. That is not intellectualism. That is cancel culture. That is a cultural phenomenon. When I'm trying to convince someone with facts and logic, and again, this has been my experience, when I'm trying to do that, I am in a place of powerlessness. And I think being female plays into this because I see it plays into what I talk about with the animus, which I'm going to talk about more. I know I'm getting around to it. I know I've gotten some messages like you got to talk about this more. I know. I'm getting to it, but uh, I'm especially like if you are female, and I would take my advice if I were like if anybody should take this advice, it's women. Women, especially women trying to debate men. The fact that that tends to bring up powerlessness in me is something that maybe anybody could recognize and say, like, yes, that is also how I feel when I'm doing that. But I think it's especially a thing for women because when we debate men, especially when we debate other women, yes, this could totally come up. But when women debate men, there's this special setup in place where the animus really wants to rise. It really wants to come out. And it really, and men have their own unconscious reaction to that, to women's unconscious. There's a chart, a very popular depth psychology chart about men and women's interactions where you can see, the women's unconscious and the man's unconscious kind of communicating like beneath the surface or in an unconscious way at least. So when I see this all the time because I look at a lot of this sort of content. When I see women in comment sections trying to debate men, specifically, and the man is always like someone who clearly is just there to be angry and like piss people off. It's not just like a regular developed healthy man. It's always like the crazy ones and that hang out in the comment sections. And I always see women taking the bait and trying to debate him. And every time I'm just like, oh my God, I can't believe I can't believe you're doing this. It feels like a waste of your essence. When I see women doing this, it feels like they are wasting their essence on men who do not value them. Strangers, right? Strangers on the internet. This notion of being smart and rational has been so hyped up in our culture. And for some reason, there's good reason for that. Like, that's not bad. It's not bad to be smart and rational. It's gotten us very far in the West. But um, basically, we believe that we are doing that even when we're not doing that. We believe that we are led by reason, and very often we are led by emotional assumptions that were created in the past and stored in the subconscious. And so we go into everything believing what we already believe. And we don't want those things to be challenged or changed because it emotionally offends us. It emotionally, it's destabilizing, right? So the subconscious, the unconscious, whatever, does not want to be challenged, not because it's stupid, but because this entire system in your body, your brain and body, it literally creates your survival, your digestion, your heart rate, etc. This is the same exact system, the autonomic nervous system that connects to your subconscious. And so it does not want to change its mind, right? So in the context of debate, it's very, very futile. That's what I believe. Changing people's minds is very, very futile. It can and does happen, but it does not happen through the mechanism of debate. So when I see people arguing on the internet and they're both like, "No, you cite your sources. No, you you cite your references." It's very like cute to me because it's like, "Oh no, it doesn't work that way." There's no amount of sources that can be cited to where the other person is going to change their mind because we're dealing with unconscious forces in competition for survival. Like, literally. There's parts of your unconscious that desperately want to live because they believe they're keeping everything going because they kinda are in certain ways. They are keeping your body going. So, this is not the story that you will hear about debate, but it should be because when you're in a debate, if you are feeling triggered, if you are feeling emotions rise, if you're feeling agitated, that's all a sign that you are not debating from an objective place. Like I talked about earlier, the true joy of debate, two people versing off and seeing who can, either prove the other person wrong or find the higher third way. It tends not to be that. So if you're feeling all this triggering, you're not doing that. So this isn't like a depressing message that you're not allowed to debate if you're enjoying it or that people can't change their minds because they can and do. It is rare, but they can and do. And the way that people change their minds is through kind of like a personal transformation. However that comes about, that can come about through outside circumstances, something happens to you that makes you unable to continue with your current beliefs as they are. Or if not that, then some sort of internal process happens and you have like an inner transformation. So it could be prompted by something outside, by something inside, but when people have these sorts of transformations, they cannot keep their minds the way it's so this sun is so crazy. They cannot keep their minds the way that they were before. So this is a big deal, right? So if you want to change someone's mind, well, is there a way that you can prompt some sort of transformation in them? Because otherwise it's not going to happen. It will happen when they are ready for it to happen, if ever. And it will happen through a personal transformation. Basically, the unconscious, the subconscious has to be involved. It can never just be, I flipped a switch and my conscious mind is different now. Unless we're talking about a topic that really doesn't matter to them all that much, right? So if I'm learning about something and I misunderstand it and then I find out I'm wrong, I can just change my mind on a dime if it doesn't matter to me, right? But in our culture, what we're seeing is a lot of very deep unconscious baggage playing out in these social wars. And so that's why you're not going to see any amount of mind change until you see a person having their own transformation. Okay. So I hope you enjoyed this very dark and light video, and I will see you in the next video.